today. I'm with some guests to talk about the 2016 elections. With me I have Javi Guerrero, Robbie Lopez, Kyle Castellanos, and Emilio Mascaro. And we're just going to talk about what we think about what's happening, mainly with the candidates, what we think about the candidates, and whether or not their policies are suitable and whether or not their candidacy is valid. So I'm going to start with a question to everyone. So I'm going to start with you, Javi. Out of the presidential candidates currently running, who do you think is most qualified to lead the country?
Marco Rubio.
Why do you think that?
To put it in 2 words, conservative values.
All right. What about you, Robbie?
Though I'm a strong Democrat and I believe in the policies of the Democratic Party, I would give my vote if I were able to vote, to Mr. John Kasich, who I believe is most qualified and most experienced for the job.
Kyle?
Well, if I had to vote for somebody, I would definitely vote for Donald Trump because I believe that he's the most qualified in several aspects, one of which being his negotiating. I believe that he can definitely reduce the trade deficit with China, and I believe that that is one of the biggest deals that we need to deal with today.
All right. Emilio?
Well, I support Bernie Sanders very, very strongly because I think that Bernie is the man who can get us out of, well, not get us out of debt, but he's the one honest man in politics, and he can get big money out of politics, which is a huge problem. The fossil fuel industries fuel their money into politics, and it's distorting the views of the politicians and distorting the views of the American people. And that money needs to get out of politics, and Bernie Sanders is the only man that can do that.
Thank you, Emilio. And back to Kyle. I'm just going to start off with one question since you were talking about Trump. One of the biggest points of discussion regarding his campaign is his idea to so-called build a wall. And a lot of people have confronted him saying that's impractical, that's not fiscally conservative. Do you agree with such statements?
Well, I definitely think that the wall is a practical idea, and I'll tell you exactly why. Many people don't see the direct effects of having such a weak border, but they're definitely there. The immigrants that are going over this wall don't have any regards for American policy and the American laws of immigration. Going by that standard, when we let them into our country, what's to say that they will respect our domestic policy, our gun policy, our drug policy? We have nothing to show for that fact. These people are technically criminals for violating the American law. So I believe that it is in the best interest of the United States to have a strong border to keep these people out.
All right, so what do you guys think?
Well, I'll go. A strong border really isn't the problem. The problem is that this man, Donald Trump, wants to deport 11 million people. He also wants to amend the Constitution so that if you are born here, it doesn't make you a citizen. And that totally goes against everything in the Constitution. It is wrong. A strong border may be good, but deporting 11 million people is Hitler-like.
Well, I definitely don't see that happening in the first place, and I don't know where these claims from amending the Constitution come from. I don't agree with these views.
Donald Trump has repeatedly said
He
so.
said it repeatedly.
I don't agree with these views, but
As a matter of fact,
what I do have to say,
Donald
and
Trump
what the question addressed was my view on a strong border. That's all I have to say.
Robbie, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was going to say that he actually did call out Marco Rubio for being born in a United States citizen, he said he can't run for president, which is a little bit crazy. Also, despite him saying that we need to build a wall, there is an unreleased tape from the New York Times that is saying differently that this immigration policy is different from what he actually believes.
No, I don't think that's what's going on there in the first place. But I think that what's going on with the tape is that the tape was confidential in the first place, and I believe that Donald Trump has already made it clear that he will not be releasing the tape because it was a mutual agreement between him and the media. The media has already stated that the tape was confidential, and Donald Trump has agreed to the standards and he respects the standards.
If you're referring to the New York Times, then sure, but the New York Times is able to and has said so that they're willing to release the tape if Donald Trump is in favor of releasing the tape. So if Donald Trump is truly in favor of building a wall and is not as flexible.
What did he say in this tape? Why won't he release the tape?
Exactly. Why won't he release the tape?
I believe that the tape says exactly what he reflects, and that is a
Then why
strong
doesn't he
border.
show
But moving aside from the tape, there's more important issues to address. For example, we actually receive more, in terms of numbers, illegal immigrants from China than we do from Mexico. So building an entire wall across a 48-foot wall or 50-foot wall, if he's that flexible, would cost America billions of dollars which it doesn't have right now. And Donald Trump has said that he's gonna, finally create a balanced budget. And his only proposals as of now have been to eliminate the EPA, who has a $7 billion budget, and to basically eliminate Common Core and the Department of Education,
Well,
which
I
again has a
definitely agree with
$73 billion budget. So how can cutting two aspects of the government, which only amounts to $81 billion of worth of government spending per year, how can that save us from $583 billion of annual loss in terms of the government
Well,
spending?
that's only the beginning. I believe that Donald Trump's tax plans, or his budget plans are well intentioned, and I believe
budget plans?
he's trying to get onto the right place. He has started off by trying to eliminate the EPA and Common Core, in which I agree with. And second, he needs to just move on and progress and develop the plan. Not only that, but just as he has started to work in collaboration with Chris Christie, he can work in collaboration with John Kasich, who is a budget specialist. And I believe if John Kasich drops out of the presidential race, he can definitely benefit Trump, and we can have the best of both worlds.
Why would
We can
John
have a
Kasich
strong
work with Donald Trump?
because
and making Mexico pay for the wall, as he suggests he's going to do, is going to start a trade war with Mexico.
that's false. If you actually look at the stats, you see that there's a $58 billion trade deficit with Mexico that they owe. And when we look at that, the wall will approximately cost $10 billion. And at the end of the day,
trade deficit has absolutely nothing to do with immigration.
It has nothing to do. That's irrelevant.
It has nothing to do
because the
Trump is an
Mexicans
excellent
don't have no
negotiator.
business.
In
Trump
fact,
is an excellent negotiator. Not only that, but I believe that he will secure that and much more for the American people.
I think this is a good place to end that topic. So let's move on. Emilio, your favorite candidate is Bernie Sanders, but a lot of people are starting to say that he's a single issue candidate. Groups such as Black Lives Matter are starting to say he doesn't really care about issues of race or issues that don't pertain to income inequality. After all, he is a self-proclaimed socialist, and he tries to emphasize this. Do you believe that he is a single issue candidate?
Well, no. And to clarify, he's a democratic socialist, which differs. Bernie Sanders, while he has very strong views on income inequality, his views and a government's views on income inequality can affect all aspects of government. It can translate directly to taxes, which can translate directly to the economy, which can translate directly to how everyday people live their lives. Income inequality is a very important issue, and it also grabs a broad aspect of issues. It's very important. But Bernie Sanders, to say that he doesn't care about issues of race and such is really short-sighted, and that's Black Lives Matter. They're a totally uneducated group who comes at you with these uneducated views, and they are wrong. They should be. This is a man, Bernie Sanders, who in 1963 was arrested for protesting for black civil rights. He has supported same-sex marriage since the 80s when nobody supported it. He strongly believes in everything that he says, and he is not a liar like the Hillary Clintons and the Donald Trumps of this world. That's why he is a very good candidate.
Kyle, you have anything to say about that?
Not only do I believe that Bernie Sanders is a one-issue candidate, I believe that his one issue that he's trying to address is completely far-fetched, to say the least. His ideas to pay for college tuition call for a 0.5% tax on stock trade. This would completely kill big trade deals in the stock market and also discourage people from entering into the stock market trade. This is a totally impractical use of trade. Not only that, but this will stagnate the stock market. And I can't think of what would happen after a stagnated stock market after we saw what happened in the Great Depression.
Okay, well, a 0.5% tax on a $1,000 stock, for example, would amount to $5 paid. You think $5 out of that $1,000 is going to stop people from going into the stock market? Absolutely not. He's going to also pay for a lot of this by taxing Wall Street speculation, which many of the developed countries of the world already do. And Wall Street speculation is the main reason why we went into the recession in 2008 in the first place. To not tax Wall Street speculation is giving the people on Wall Street just free stuff because they have so much money.
Although I may not agree with most of the components from Bernie Sanders' ideas, I do agree that Bernie Sanders is an honorable candidate. Unlike Hillary and unlike Donald Trump, who just recently supported Planned Parenthood, Bernie Sanders has not deviated from his ideas since the 1980s. Unlike Hillary, who's constantly flip-flopped in certain issues. Unlike Donald Trump, who was definitely flip-flopped. And just 5 years ago, declared himself as a Democrat, who considered himself very leftist and very pro-choice. Unlike Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders is actually very clear on what it supports. And if I were to vote Democratic, which I would never do, I would vote for Bernie Sanders.
Now, going off of what he said when it comes to deviating from policy, we have someone like John Kasich who has worked hard in his home state of Ohio to actually make these ideas of lowering state tuition, expanding Medicare, where no other Republican governor has done, and he's done it with little to no actual raise in taxes, and he's balanced the budget, and he's done a great job.
I think that's
and I
for-
think
I
that's
think-
how we apply conservative, economic conservative ideals with social liberalism.
Well,
I
I
think
Robbie,
definitely can't. I definitely
If I
can't
can
go-
intervene
yeah, go
here
ahead.
real quick, just to sort of shift up the topics a little bit. Now that we're on the topic of John Kasich, a lot of people believe that Kasich's not doing well at all in the primaries, and that's obviously based. As it stands, he has 114 less delegates than Rubio, who is one place above him. So a lot of people are starting to ask, should Kasich drop out? What do you think?
Personally, I think that Kasich, unlike many other candidates, is an honorable man. He's a good man, and he's done a great job in Ohio. And I think he can apply his knowledge of government in so many ways, whether it be executive or congressionally, to government at the federal level. But I really think that first of all, he's polling high in Michigan. He's obviously polling high in his home state of Ohio. And I think that if he wins both those states, I think he has a greater chance of fighting against people like Marco Rubio, who have only won Puerto Rico and Minnesota. So.
I definitely have to agree with Robbie said. I believe that we have to give a little bit more time to John Kasich, because if Donald Trump wasn't in the race, I would definitely be an avid supporter of John Kasich. I believe I believe in a lot of his budget plans. I believe they're well intentioned, and they're quite planned out, which is something that most politicians these days don't have. Not only that, but I also agree with Robbie that I think that he should at least run for a little bit, see how Michigan and Ohio turn out. If those two don't work, I think that maybe he should work with Donald Trump and become his budget specialist.
Now look, there is a major difference between Mr. Donald Trump and John Kasich. John Kasich is a man who has been fighting for conservative values for his whole career, unlike Mr. Donald Trump, who's before a Democrat. And I am a Democrat, but we look at someone like John Kasich, who is a well-intentioned man and has bipartisanship and has worked with people in Congress under Bill Clinton to pass a budget that gave a surplus and was able to make major reforms and still not raise much taxes. I mean, I think it's a major difference between Donald Trump, who is for a progressive tax plan and is for wasting a bunch of money and doesn't really know how to spend
First thing you have
Going
to do
back
is
to
you
the
have to
original
clear
issue.
up what you just said. Donald Trump is not trying to raise taxes. If you actually look at the numbers, which people don't do these days, all people do is watch an hour of the TV and they're completely hypnotized by what the media has to say. Donald Trump proposed a tax plan that would lower taxes $11.98 trillion. That is an enormous amount of money, and that would be excellent for the everyday person, because quite frankly, the cost of living is going up, and the wages are staying stagnant. So what we really need to see is a tax cut and a proper plan to balance.
Tax
really
cuts
has
must
no-
be accompanied
yeah.
with a
He has no
decreasing
proper
government spending,
plan.
and which he has
Of course.
absolutely no proper plan for doing
Exactly.
so.
He doesn't have a
He's
plan. He's just
always
going to
had a
limit
plan.
the
He has a
EPA.
Which plan?
That's a
Again,
start.
cutting
That's a
the
start.
cutting the
That's a
government-
start to the plan, just the same way that John Kasich started with the plan. It starts with small ideas, and although Donald Trump has
But
not
John
released
Kasich
the
has
entire
actual
thing.
results. He went from having a
Of course,
$400 billion
but
deficit
when-
in
but
Ohio
when-
to creating a $200 billion surplus.
but when
What
he
has Donald
started-
Trump done? And although, returning to the original question, I don't agree with Kasich staying in the race, even though he's a respectable politician and actually has decent experience as the governor of Ohio and has proposed actual ideas, unlike Donald Trump. Kasich has actually prevented from Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, with his votes, from beating Donald Trump. Fact is, 65% of Republicans are actually against Donald Trump. Donald Trump has not been able to win one state with over 50% of the vote. If Kasich and Cruz or Rubio drop out and leave one opponent to Donald Trump,
I think at this point, the focus for the Republican Party has to be stopping Trump at all costs, and that has to be accompanied with Kasich dropping out. If he doesn't win Michigan, if he doesn't win Ohio, and in Michigan he's trailing Donald Trump by a considerable amount, if he doesn't win those states, I think it's time for him to drop out and get behind other guys, because the focus for the Republican Party has to be not electing the best candidate at this point, which would be John Kasich, but it has to be stopping Donald Trump at all costs.
And
Sounds like everybody here's for John Kasich.
well, Javi, now that we're on the top, now that you brought up Marco Rubio, I just want to ask. A lot of people have been talking about Marco Rubio, saying that he's a bit of a lazy statesman. People are looking at his attendance records, and to say the least, it's scandalous. Do you think this affects Rubio's qualification to become president?
Not at all. Rubio is the only current politician, Republican politician, who has spent time on the Foreign Affairs Committee and who has actually contributed to significant change in Congress. Unlike Donald Trump, for example, who has absolutely no political experience, Rubio has been there. In fact, he's one of the youngest politicians and actually was the youngest Speaker of the House in Florida history. Rubio has done significant change, and although he may have had a scandalous, as you called it, attendance record in the Senate and in the Florida House of Representatives, Rubio actually has political experience, and that is needed in the office of the presidency. We cannot continue to rely on political outsiders like Donald Trump and Ben Carson, who, thankfully, Ben Carson has dropped out of the race, but Donald Trump remains. So again, as I called for Kasich to drop out earlier, the Republican Party needs to coalesce around one candidate, whether or not that be Cruz or Marco Rubio. It is clear that the party must unite and take down Donald Trump, because Donald Trump is a disaster for the Republican Party. Fact is, the only candidate besides Kasich who can currently beat Hillary is Marco Rubio. And although, as you had said earlier, Marco Rubio's delegate count is nowhere near Donald Trump, fact is he's recently been gaining momentum. He's won Puerto Rico, and although it isn't a state, that's 20 delegates. He beat Minnesota. He did extremely well in Vermont. Had it not been for Kasich, he could have easily won Vermont and other states. So Marco Rubio is on the rise. And Ted Cruz has only been able to win so far his home state of Texas and its bordering states. In fact, the only state that isn't reasonable in terms of evangelical voters who might vote for Ted Cruz is Iowa. And Iowa actually has a lot of evangelical voters who are Ted Cruz's main base of support. So as Ted Cruz starts moving aside from evangelical states, you'll see that Marco Rubio has an edge on Ted Cruz.
Well, since we're a little pressed for time here, I'm just going to move on to the final topic. I think we'll all agree on this one. And I'm going to actually ask you, Robbie. Many regard Hillary Clinton as a full-fledged criminal, especially with the Benghazi scandal and her email servers. Do you believe that her scandals disqualify her from becoming president of this country?
Obviously, in a lot of ways, her handling of Benghazi was terrible, and the handling of the whole emails has been absolutely atrocious on Hillary Clinton's part. And the fact that she's still surging in the polls is a little bit displeasing for my party being involved. But do I think that disqualifies her? I think it disqualifies her in the sense that she's not trustworthy. I don't think that I can see myself supporting someone who can't even, say the truth when it comes to a place where people died, which is Benghazi, and an email scandal involving Libya, which is again where Benghazi took place. So I really don't know whether it would disqualify her, but it definitely should disqualify her in the sense that I wouldn't trust her.
This Wednesday, Democratic voters are going to have to ask themselves, do I trust Hillary Clinton? And hopefully the answer is no, because Hillary Clinton's entire stance on the whole email issue, she's apparently delighted that one of her top aides has been granted immunity, and she's repeatedly refused to acknowledge that there's a criminal investigation from the FBI. So, as a Republican, I don't trust Hillary Clinton, and his entire stance on multiple issues. She's repeatedly said that she supported gay marriage from the 80s and from the 90s. She's always supported gay marriage, which is not true. Hillary Clinton has continuously flip-flopped on numerous issues, and Democrats are beginning to acknowledge that Bernie Sanders could be the right Democratic candidate.
Well, I don't think that the Democratic Party has anything to be proud of. They have a crook on one side and a far-fetched man on the other side. They honestly don't have anything to believe in at this point. One man is asking for a raise on tax to the single mothers who work 2 to 3 jobs to support
And one man
their
is
2 to
asking
3
to
children.
build a wall.
That's
And
not
the other
true.
man, and the other man,
That's not true.
and the other woman,
You just lied.
is asking for the votes and is asking for the loyalty to people who actually believe her, when in reality there's nothing to believe in there. She's been flip-flopped more times than a bird.
This is the same type of rhetoric and the same type of talk that is ruining the Republican Party.
From
we
Donald
need
Trump.
people from Donald Trump. This is the same thing, lying about policies, making up
currently
lies,
just
attacking,
lying.
Not disavowing
insulting.
David
That's
Duke
not
and
lying.
Ku Klux
It's
Klan.
the truth.
Bernie's tax plan raises does not raise on moms with two to
Well,
three
actually,
kids.
if
It
you- if
raises
you-
taxes on people making over $500,000
Well, actually, if you
a
look at
year,
if you look
on
at
people
if you look
making
at the
over
policy,
$10 million a
if you look at
year.
the policy, he
I know
actually
the
wants to
policy.
change.
It's a
He actually
52% tax on
he
people
wants-
making over 10 million.
of course,
a
he wants to do that.
43% tax
Of course,
on people
he,
making
of course
over
he wants
2
to do that.
million.
But he, as far as I'm concerned, he wants to increase 1.2% onto the income tax, and that would be absolutely ridiculous, and that has astronomical effects
But I
to
just
a
told you how he's
to a
gonna do it.
to a woman that has to support her children.
At least his math adds up.
Yeah.
Of course, his math might add up, but when you
Unlike
look at it
Donald
at the end, when you look at it, this is not a plan that will be done in 5 years. This is a plan this plan won't even be done in 10 years. This plan is a long-lasting plan that has horrible effects to the American economy, and we frankly can't see this plan going through.
Well,
Not only that,
where's
but
Donald Trump's tax plan?
not only that, but we're also
Donald Trump not answering the question.
looking at a Republican-dominated Congress that will not let this go through. So if we have to elect somebody that can work with a Republican-dominated Congress, and that is
Mitch
definitely
McConnell
not
said
Bernie
Can
Sanders.
Donald
Donald
Trump work
Trump.
with Speaker of the House Ryan?
course.
And can he work?
Bernie Sanders
Mitch
has said it.
McConnell has
He's-
said
And
he
can
will
he
not
work with
work
Mitch
with
McConnell?
them.
Of
No,
course.
he can't.
Yeah,
Donald Trump has
said
said it
it.
before. He has said
He
it
has said
once and
he will
again.
not work with Donald
Donald-
Trump.
The very Republican leaders in the House that you claim that Donald Trump can garner support from
Hate him.
have said that they will not support Donald Trump.
Well, that
In
is
fact, the
definitely-
Republican Party is actually considering, at least the head of the Republican Party, are considering voting against Donald Trump and his voters in a
They're trying to
constitutional
broker
convention.
convention.
Broker convention.
And
Yeah,
broker
they're trying to
convention.
broker
Broker
convention.
Thank you, Javi. And I think that concludes this episode of What Say Thee. I just want to thank you all for coming here, and I'll see you in the next episode.